What if I told you that your insomnia might not be a medical problem, but an unconscious mechanism of self-sabotage? That your mind is literally working against you, creating resistance to sleep in ways so subtle that you don't even notice. I'm going to tell you something that will completely change how you see your sleepless nights. After years working with people who tried everything, from melatonin to sleep therapy, radical diet changes, and exercise routines, I discovered that 70% of chronic insomnia cases have a component nobody talks about: disguised sabotage. I'm not talking about you consciously choosing not to sleep. I'm talking about unconscious patterns so deep that your mind has literally learned to associate sleep with danger, vulnerability, or loss of control. And the most striking part? These patterns manifest in ways you would never imagine are connected to your insomnia. In the next few minutes, I'm going to reveal the 5 secret signs that indicate your mind is sabotaging your sleep. And here's the crucial part. If you recognize at least 3 of these signs, your insomnia might be much easier to solve than you imagine. So stay with me until the end, because the last sign is the most common and the most dangerous, and also the one with the simplest solution once you understand the mechanism behind it. And I have good news for you. If this content is making sense, hit that like button and comment which sign sparked your curiosity the most. This trains the algorithm to offer more videos like this to you and to other people going through the same problem. You literally help YouTube connect content that can transform sleepless nights into restorative sleep. The first thing you need to understand is that disguised sabotage is not a conscious choice. It's your unconscious trying to protect you from something it considers dangerous. And why specifically sleep? Because sleeping is the most vulnerable state that exists. You're completely defenseless, without control, immersed in the unknown. For a mind that has learned that vulnerability is dangerous, this is unacceptable. So it creates elaborate strategies to keep you awake, disguised as legitimate problems, urgent needs, or valid concerns. The problem is that these strategies are so convincing that you firmly believe they are the cause of your insomnia, when in reality they are just symptoms of a much deeper resistance to the act of resting. Now let me reveal the first secret sign that your mind is sabotaging your sleep, and this one is going to surprise you because it seems like you're doing everything right. Secret sign number 1, the nighttime perfectionist. You might be thinking, but I'm just trying to optimize my sleep. Here's the thing. If you have more than 10 rules for falling asleep, you're not optimizing, you're sabotaging. The nighttime perfectionist is someone who during the day can accept that things aren't perfect, can roll with changes, can adapt when plans fall through. But the moment bedtime approaches, they transform into an obsessive control freak who believes that unless every single condition is exactly right, sleep is impossible. Do you recognize this? You need the room to be exactly 67 degrees, not 66, not 68. The pillow has to be fluffed a specific way. You need exactly 8 ounces of water, not 7, not 9. The white noise machine has to be on volume 6, and if someone accidentally changes it to 5 or 7, your entire night is ruined. You have a pre-sleep routine that takes longer than most people's actual sleep. You check the locks 3 times set. 17 different alarms arrange your clothes in a specific order for tomorrow. And if any step gets interrupted or done wrong, you feel this surge of anxiety because you just know that your sleep is now doomed. Here's what's really happening. Your perfectionist sleep routine is not helping you sleep. It's keeping you awake. Every rule you create is another opportunity to fail. Every requirement for perfect sleep is another source of anxiety. You're turning your bedroom into a laboratory, and yourself into both the scientist and the experiment, and the pressure of getting it all right is activating your nervous system in exactly the opposite way you need for sleep. I had a client, let's call her Maria, who came to me with a list, an actual written list of 47 different things that had to be perfect for her to sleep. 47. She had specific pajamas for different seasons, a complex supplement schedule, breathing exercises that had to be done in exact sequences, and even rules about which thoughts she was allowed to have before bed. The breakthrough came when I asked her a simple question. Maria, when in your life did you sleep the best? She thought for a moment and said, probably in college when I would just collapse into bed after studying all night in the library. No routine, no rules, no perfect conditions. just exhaustion and permission to rest. The nighttime perfectionist is sabotage disguised as optimization. Your mind has convinced you that control equals safety, that if you can just manage every variable, you can guarantee good sleep. But sleep doesn't work that way. Sleep requires surrender, not control. It requires letting go, not holding on tighter. If you're recognizing yourself in this pattern, here's what's really happening. You're afraid of the vulnerability that comes with truly letting go. So you create the illusion of control through perfectionist routines, not realizing that the very act of trying to control sleep is what's preventing it from happening naturally. The solution isn't to throw away every sleep hygiene practice. Some basic consistency is helpful. The solution is to recognize when you've crossed the line from helpful habits into anxiety-inducing obsessions. When your pre-sleep routine feels more like a ritual to ward off evil spirits than a gentle transition to rest, you've entered sabotage territory. Secret sign. 2. The nighttime productivity addict. Now, this second sign is particularly sneaky because it makes you feel virtuous while it's destroying your sleep. Have you ever noticed that you suddenly become incredibly productive right when you should be going to bed? Here's how it works. You're tired all day. You're dragging through afternoon meetings. You can barely focus after 3 p.m. You're yawning constantly and telling everyone how exhausted you are. But the moment 10 p.m. rolls around, the moment you should be winding down, suddenly you have the energy of a caffeinated teenager. Oh, I should organize this closet right now. Let me just respond to these 3 emails that aren't urgent. I should meal prep for tomorrow. This is the perfect time to deep clean the bathroom. I just remembered I need to research that thing for next week's project. You tell yourself it's because you finally have quiet time, finally have space to think. But here's the truth. This isn't about having time or energy. This is your mind creating urgent busy work to avoid the one thing it's actually afraid of: stopping. The nighttime productivity addict has usually learned somewhere along the way that their worth is tied to their output. Rest feels like laziness. Stillness feels like stagnation. The idea of lying in bed doing nothing for 8 hours triggers a deep anxiety about being unproductive, wasteful, or, and this is the big one, useless. So your mind helpfully provides you with a surge of energy and a list of important tasks right at bedtime. It's not trying to ruin your sleep. It's trying to maintain your identity as someone who's always contributing, always moving, always valuable because of what they produce. I worked with a guy named David, who was a marketing executive. Every single night for 2 years, he would get into bed, then suddenly remember crucial tasks that couldn't wait until morning. He'd spend hours organizing files, updating spreadsheets, responding to non-urgent messages. He convinced himself this was just good time management, using those quiet evening hours productively. The breakthrough came when I asked him, "David, what do you think would happen if you went to bed tonight without doing any of those tasks?" He was quiet for a long time, then said something that surprised even him. "I guess I'm afraid that if I'm not constantly proving my value, people will realize they don't actually need me." There it was. The nighttime productivity wasn't about efficiency. It was about anxiety, fear of being disposable, fear that rest equals laziness, equals worthlessness. His mind had learned to associate doing nothing with being nothing, so it created endless urgent tasks to keep him safely busy and therefore safely valuable. Here's the thing that's going to blow your mind. That surge of nighttime energy is not natural energy, it's stress energy. It's your nervous system flooding you with cortisol and adrenaline because it perceives rest as a threat to your survival. You're not actually more energetic at 11 p.m. than you were at 3 p.m. You're more stressed. The cruel irony is that this pattern guarantees poor performance the next day. You stay up being productive with a tired brain that makes mistakes, misses details, and produces lower quality work. Then you drag through the next day exhausted, reinforcing the belief that you need to catch up at night, creating an endless cycle of nighttime productivity and daytime exhaustion. If you're recognizing this pattern, you're not lazy for wanting to rest. You're not weak for needing sleep. You're not less valuable when you're not producing. Your worth as a human being is not determined by your hourly output. but your mind might have learned otherwise, and it's keeping you awake to protect an identity that's actually harming you. The solution starts with a radical idea. What if being well-rested made you more valuable, not less? What if taking care of your basic human need for sleep was actually the most productive thing you could do? What if your 3 a.m. email responses are impressive to no one and help nothing, but your well-rested presence tomorrow could change everything? Secret sign number 3. The strategic catastrophizer. This third sign is perhaps the most insidious because it disguises itself as responsibility and preparation. You lie down to sleep and suddenly your brain becomes a disaster planning committee, running through every possible thing that could go wrong tomorrow, next week, or next year. But here's what makes this different from regular worry. The strategic catastrophizer genuinely believes that this middle-of-the-night anxiety session is productive. If I think through all the worst-case scenarios now, I'll be prepared. If I worry about it enough, maybe I can prevent it. If I don't think about these problems, I'm being irresponsible. Sound familiar? You're lying in bed at 2 a.m. mentally rehearsing a difficult conversation with your boss that might happen next month. You're planning your response to criticism that hasn't been given. You're solving problems that don't exist yet and might never exist. You're running through detailed scenarios of financial ruin, relationship disasters, health crises, or professional failures. And the whole time, there's this voice in your head saying, "This is important. This is necessary. This is me being prepared and responsible." Your mind has convinced you that this catastrophic thinking is actually a form of problem solving, when it's really just anxiety wearing a productivity mask. I had a client named Sarah who would lie awake for hours every night mentally planning her defense for mistakes she hadn't made. She'd rehearse explanations for why her project might fail, prepare responses to complaints that hadn't been filed, and create elaborate backup plans for disasters that existed only in her imagination. When I asked her what she thought would happen if she stopped this nighttime worry session, she looked at me like I'd suggested she stop wearing seatbelts. But what if something bad happens and I'm not prepared? What if I haven't thought through all the possibilities? What if I get caught off guard? Here's the devastating truth. All of Sarah's catastrophic planning never prevented a single real problem. Not one. In fact, her exhaustion from sleepless nights made her more likely to make the mistakes she was so afraid of making. Her nighttime worry sessions were creating the very problems they claimed to prevent. The strategic catastrophizer operates on a fundamental misunderstanding of how preparation actually works. Real preparation happens during waking hours with a clear mind, concrete actions and practical solutions. Anxious rumination at 3 a.m. isn't preparation. It's mental torture disguised as diligence. But here's why your brain does this. Somewhere along the way, you learned that bad things happen to people who don't worry enough. Maybe you were caught off guard by something painful in the past and your mind decided that constant vigilance was the solution. Maybe you grew up in an environment where relaxation was seen as carelessness, where letting your guard down meant danger. So now your brain stays up all night running security drills, convinced that if you stop worrying, if you truly relax and rest, something terrible will slip through the cracks. Your insomnia isn't just sleep trouble. It's your mind's way of staying on duty, keeping watch, making sure you're never vulnerable to the unexpected. The cruel irony is that chronic worry makes you less prepared for real challenges, not more. When you're exhausted from sleepless nights of catastrophic thinking, you have less emotional resilience, worse decision-making abilities, and reduced problem-solving skills. You're preparing for imaginary disasters while making yourself less capable of handling real ones. The difference between productive planning and strategic catastrophizing is this. Productive planning leads to action during waking hours. Strategic catastrophizing leads to endless mental loops with no resolution. If your nighttime thinking isn't leading to concrete steps you can take tomorrow, it's not planning. It's just anxiety with a business plan. Here's the truth your worried mind doesn't want to hear. Most of the things you worry about never happen. And the things that do happen are rarely as bad as your 3 a.m. brain makes them seem. And even when difficult things do occur, you'll handle them better with a rested brain than with an exhausted one that's been rehearsing disasters all night. The solution isn't to stop caring about the future or to become recklessly optimistic. The solution is to recognize when you've crossed the line from reasonable preparation into anxiety, masquerading as responsibility. When your bedtime worry session feels more like a horror movie marathon than actual problem solving, you've entered sabotage territory. Secret sign number 4. The chaos addiction. This fourth sign is going to sound counterintuitive, but stay with me because this might be the most eye-opening one yet. Some people are literally addicted to emotional chaos and drama, and they use it to avoid the one thing that terrifies them more than any crisis: peace. Here's how you know if this is you. Whenever life gets calm, whenever things are going well, whenever there's nothing urgent to worry about, you feel deeply uncomfortable. Not grateful, not relaxed, uncomfortable. Like something is wrong. Like you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like this peace is somehow dangerous. So what does your mind do? It creates problems. Not consciously. You're not sitting there thinking, I need more drama in my life. But unconsciously, you start stirring the pot. You pick fights with your partner over small things. You catastrophize minor work issues into major crises. You create urgency where none exists. You turn molehills into mountains because mountains feel familiar and peace feels foreign. The chaos addict can't sleep when life is calm because calm feels like the most dangerous state of all. Your nervous system has become so accustomed to running on stress hormones, adrenaline, cortisol, the fight-or-flight cocktail, that when those chemicals drop to normal levels, you feel like you're dying rather than finally living. I worked with a woman named Jennifer who realized she had this pattern after tracking her sleep for 3 months. Every time she had a peaceful day, good interactions at work, pleasant evening with her family, no major stressors, she couldn't sleep. But on days filled with conflict, deadlines, and drama, she slept like a baby. Her breakthrough moment came when she admitted something shocking. I think I'm more comfortable with problems than with solutions. When everything is fine, I feel like I'm not paying attention, like I'm being naive or irresponsible. Chaos feels like real life. Peace feels like I'm living in a fantasy that's about to collapse. This is trauma response disguised as personality. If you grew up in an environment where calm meant you weren't prepared for the next crisis, where peace was just the eye of the storm, where relaxation was a luxury you couldn't afford, your nervous system learned that high alert equals safety and calm equals danger. So now, as an adult, when you lie down to sleep and there's nothing to fight against, nothing to solve, nothing to escape from, your brain panics. It says, this is wrong, where's the threat? Why aren't we prepared? We need to create some problems so we can feel safe again. And here's the really twisted part. You become so good at creating and managing chaos that you start to believe you are someone who thrives under pressure, someone who performs best in crisis mode. You build your identity around being the person who can handle anything, who never breaks under stress, who actually gets energized by problems. But here's what you do not realize. You're not thriving under pressure. You're surviving under pressure. There's a huge difference. Thriving means growing, expanding, creating from a place of abundance. Surviving means just making it through, running on empty, borrowing energy from tomorrow to get through today. The chaos addiction keeps you awake because stillness, quiet, peace, these states allow you to feel what's really underneath all that manufactured urgency. And what's underneath might be grief, loneliness, fear, or simply the unfamiliar sensation of not having to be on all the time. Your mind has learned that if you're not in crisis mode, you're vulnerable. If you're not solving problems, you're useless. If you're not managing some kind of emergency, you don't have a purpose. So it keeps you awake, keeps you activated, keeps you in that familiar state of heightened alertness that feels like safety, but is actually exhaustion dressed up as competence. The solution isn't to eliminate all challenges from your life. That's impossible and wouldn't be healthy anyway. The solution is to slowly, gradually teach your nervous system that peace is not dangerous, that calm is not carelessness, that rest is not laziness or vulnerability. You have to learn to tolerate the discomfort of everything being okay. You have to practice sitting with the anxiety that comes when there's nothing to fix, nothing to fight, nothing to flee from. You have to discover who you are when you're not in survival mode, because that person, the one who can rest when rest is available, that's who you actually are underneath all the learned chaos. Secret sign number 5, the exhaustion imposter. This final sign is the most common and the most deceptive because it sounds like the most logical complaint in the world. I'm absolutely exhausted, but I just can't fall asleep. If you've ever said these words, you need to pay very close attention to what I'm about to reveal. The exhaustion imposter is someone who experiences physical tiredness but not sleepiness. You're yawning all day, your body feels heavy, you can barely keep your eyes open during afternoon meetings, you tell everyone how completely drained you are. But the moment your head hits the pillow, suddenly you're wide awake, mind racing, scrolling through your phone with perfect focus. Here's the thing that's going to shock you. You might be addicted to being tired. Not addicted to the feeling itself, but addicted to what being tired allows you to avoid. Chronic exhaustion has become your shield, your excuse, your identity, and your way of navigating the world without having to show up fully. Think about it. When you're tired, expectations are lower. When you're exhausted, people don't expect your best performance. When you're running on empty, you get sympathy instead of demands. When you're barely functioning, you can phone it in without guilt. Tiredness becomes a socially acceptable reason to not give 100%, to not take risks, to not fully engage with your life. The exhaustion imposter uses fatigue as a form of emotional armor. I can't handle conflict right now. I'm too tired. I can't pursue that opportunity, I'm too exhausted. I can't have difficult conversations, I don't have the energy. I can't show up fully in my relationships. I'm barely keeping my head above water. But here's the devastating truth. You're not too tired to scroll social media for 2 hours. You're not too exhausted to binge watch Netflix until 2 a.m. You're not too depleted to research random topics on the internet or reorganize your photos or online shop for things you don't need. You have energy for distraction but not for rest. You have focus for avoidance but not for sleep. I worked with a client named Michael who realized he had been performing exhaustion for years. He would drag himself through each day, constantly talking about how tired he was, how he couldn't wait to get home and collapse. But when bedtime came, he'd find himself fully alert, doing everything except sleeping. The breakthrough came when I asked him, "Michael, what do you think would happen if you woke up tomorrow completely rested and energized?" His answer revealed everything. I guess people would expect more from me. I'd have to actually try at things instead of just getting by. I'd have to face all the things I've been too tired to deal with. There it was. His exhaustion wasn't just a side effect of poor sleep. It was a strategy for avoiding the full engagement that life requires. Being tired meant he could coast, could avoid difficult decisions, could live in a kind of emotional and psychological hibernation. The exhaustion imposter mistake tiredness for sleepiness, but they're completely different things. Tiredness is physical depletion. Your body feels heavy, your muscles ache, your energy is low. Sleepiness is neurological readiness for sleep, your brain naturally slowing down, your consciousness gently fading, your body preparing for rest. You can be tired without being sleepy, and you can be sleepy without being particularly tired. The problem is that chronic stress, anxiety, and resistance to rest can make you physically exhausted while keeping your nervous system in an activated state that prevents actual sleepiness from occurring. The cruel irony is that performing exhaustion guarantees actual exhaustion. When you spend your days dragging through life half-engaged, you're not conserving energy. You're wasting it. When you use tiredness as an excuse to avoid showing up fully, you're not protecting yourself. You're depleting yourself in a different way. But here's the most shocking part. Some part of you doesn't want to sleep well because sleeping well would mean waking up rested, and waking up rested would mean you'd have to show up to your life without the protective buffer of exhaustion. You'd have to engage fully, try your best, take responsibility for your choices, and face whatever you've been too tired to handle. The solution isn't just better sleep hygiene or the perfect bedtime routine. The solution is asking yourself the hard question. What am I afraid I'd have to face if I were fully rested? What responsibility am I avoiding by staying in this liminal state between awake and asleep? Between engaged and checked out? Your insomnia might not be something happening to you. It might be something you're unconsciously doing to maintain a version of yourself that feels safer than the fully rested, fully engaged person you could become. And here's the truth. Your exhausted mind doesn't want to hear. You're capable of so much more than you're allowing yourself to experience. The person you'd be with 8 hours of quality sleep, the energy you'd have, the clarity you'd possess, the presence you could bring to your relationships and work, that version of you exists, and the only thing standing between who you are now and who you could be is the unconscious decision to keep sabotaging your rest. The question you need to ask yourself right now is brutally honest. How many of these 5 signs did you recognize in yourself? If it was 3 or more, then your insomnia isn't a medical mystery that requires expensive treatments or complex solutions. It's your mind protecting you from something it perceives as dangerous. And that something is the vulnerability that comes with truly resting. Here's what most people don't understand about sleep. It's not just physical rest, it's complete surrender. When you sleep, you give up control. You become vulnerable. You trust that you'll be safe while unconscious for 8 hours. For a mind that has learned that vigilance equals survival, this feels like volunteering for danger. So your unconscious creates elaborate strategies to keep you awake. Perfectionist routines that can never be satisfied. Urgent tasks that appear right at bedtime. Catastrophic scenarios that demand immediate mental attention. Chaos that feels more familiar than peace. And exhaustion that protects you from having to show up fully to your life. But here's the breakthrough moment. Once you recognize these patterns as sabotage rather than legitimate sleep problems, everything changes. You stop fighting the symptoms and start addressing the cause. You stop trying to force sleep and start removing the barriers to natural rest. The solution isn't another sleep hack or a new supplement or a more expensive mattress. The solution is developing what I call rest courage, the bravery to let go, to be vulnerable, to trust that you're safe enough to truly rest. It's learning that sleep isn't dangerous, peace isn't naive, and being fully rested doesn't make you weak. It makes you powerful. I want you to try something tonight. Instead of fighting these sabotage patterns, simply observe them with curiosity rather than judgment. When you notice the perfectionist checking the alarm for the 5th time, don't get angry. Just think, oh, there's my mind trying to control sleep again. When you feel the urge to reorganize your closet at 11 p.m., don't fight it or give in to it. Just recognize it. There's my productivity addiction trying to keep me busy. When your brain starts catastrophizing about tomorrow's meeting, don't try to stop the thoughts, just acknowledge them. There's my strategic catastrophizer trying to solve imaginary problems. When you feel uncomfortable with how peaceful your day was, notice it. There's my chaos addiction, feeling unsafe with calm. When you tell yourself you're too tired to sleep, recognize the contradiction. There's my exhaustion imposter, using tiredness to avoid rest. This simple shift from fighting to observing begins to dissolve the power these patterns have over you. You start to see them as outdated protection mechanisms rather than legitimate needs. You begin to understand that your mind isn't broken, it's just scared, and it's trying to keep you safe in ways that are no longer serving you. The transformation happens when you start treating these patterns with compassion instead of frustration. Your perfectionist isn't trying to ruin your sleep, it's trying to create safety through control. Your productivity addiction isn't trying to exhaust you, it's trying to maintain your sense of worth. Your catastrophic thinking isn't trying to torture you, it's trying to prepare you for danger. Once you understand that these patterns come from protection, not pathology, you can start to gently redirect them. You can thank your mind for trying to keep you safe, and then reassure it that it's okay to rest. You can acknowledge the fear behind the sabotage and then choose courage over comfort. Here's your challenge. For the next 7 nights, instead of trying to fix your sleep, focus on recognizing these sabotage patterns without judgment. Don't try to change them yet, just notice them. Awareness is the first step toward transformation, and once you see these patterns clearly, they begin to lose their grip on you automatically. Remember, your insomnia might not be something wrong with you. It might be something you're unconsciously doing to protect yourself from a vulnerability that no longer needs protecting. The question isn't, how can I force myself to sleep? The question is, what am I afraid would happen if I truly let myself rest? Your peaceful nights are waiting for you on the other side of that fear. And now you have the awareness to find them. Now I want to address something crucial that you might be thinking right now. This all sounds interesting, but how do I actually stop these patterns? How do I convince my unconscious mind that it's safe to sleep? The answer is going to surprise you because it's the opposite of what most sleep advice tells you to do. Instead of trying to override these sabotage patterns, you're going to have a conversation with them. Tonight, when you notice one of these patterns showing up, let's say it's the strategic catastrophizer running through worst-case scenarios, instead of fighting it or trying to distract yourself, you're going to speak directly to that part of your mind. Out loud or silently, say something like this. I see you there trying to protect me by thinking through every possible problem. I understand you're scared that if I stop worrying, something bad might slip through the cracks. Thank you for trying to keep me safe. But right now, at 2 a.m., there's nothing I can actually do about any of these scenarios. So I'm asking you to trust me for the next 8 hours. Let me rest so I can handle whatever comes up tomorrow with a clear mind. This is not positive thinking or affirmations. This is acknowledging the intelligence behind the pattern while setting a boundary with it. You're not dismissing your mind's concerns, you're negotiating with them. For the perfectionist, you might say, I know you want everything to be exactly right so I can sleep perfectly. But perfect conditions don't create perfect sleep. Relaxation does. I'm going to sleep imperfectly tonight, and that's okay. You can stop checking and controlling now. For the productivity addict, I see you found 17 urgent tasks that suddenly need to be done right now. I know you're trying to prove my worth through constant activity, but my value isn't determined by my 11 p.m. productivity. These tasks will still be here tomorrow, and I'll handle them better with rest. For the chaos addiction, I notice you're feeling uncomfortable because today was peaceful. I know peace feels dangerous because you've learned that calm means we're not prepared for problems. But creating problems to feel safe is making me less safe, not more. It's okay to have easy days. I can handle both peace and challenges. For the exhaustion imposter, I feel you performing tiredness while keeping me awake. I understand you're trying to protect me from having to show up fully to life. But being exhausted isn't keeping me safe, it's keeping me stuck. I'm ready to rest so I can engage with life from strength, not depletion. Here's what happens when you start having these conversations. You begin to separate yourself from these patterns. Instead of I can't sleep because I'm anxious, it becomes part of me is creating anxiety to avoid the vulnerability of sleep. Instead of I have insomnia, it becomes I have patterns that are keeping me awake for protective reasons that no longer serve me. This shift in language creates space between you and the sabotage. You're not broken. You have parts of your mind that are trying to help in misguided ways, and once you understand their positive intention, you can redirect their energy toward actually keeping you safe, which sometimes means resting deeply so you can show up powerfully. But here's the most important part. You have to mean it when you thank these patterns for trying to protect you. They're not your enemies. They're outdated security systems that need updating, not eliminating. The goal isn't to destroy these parts of yourself. It's to evolve them. Your perfectionist can become discernment, the ability to know what actually matters and what doesn't. Your productivity addiction can become purposeful action, the capacity to work intensely when needed and rest completely when possible. Your strategic catastrophizer can become intuitive preparation, the wisdom to plan for realistic challenges without creating imaginary ones. Your chaos addiction can become comfort with both intensity and peace, the flexibility to handle whatever life brings. Your exhaustion imposter can become authentic energy management, the honesty to engage fully when you're resourced and rest completely when you need to recharge. These aren't personality flaws to eliminate. They're superpowers that got misdirected. The same intensity that keeps you awake worrying could fuel incredible focus during the day. The same perfectionism that creates impossible sleep conditions could create beautiful attention to detail in your work. The same protective vigilance that prevents rest could become intuitive awareness that enhances your relationships and decision-making. The transformation happens when you stop fighting these parts of yourself and start redirecting them. When you give them better jobs to do. When you honor their intelligence while updating their strategies. So tonight, instead of lying there frustrated that your mind won't turn off, get curious about which protection pattern is showing up. Have a conversation with it. Thank it for caring about your well-being. Negotiate a better arrangement. And watch how quickly patterns that seemed permanent begin to shift when they feel seen and appreciated, rather than judged and fought against. Your insomnia isn't your enemy. It's your mind's misguided attempt to be your bodyguard. And once you help it understand that true safety sometimes requires rest, those protective patterns can finally relax their vigilance and let you sleep. The 3-night reset protocol. Now that you understand the psychology behind your sleep sabotage, I'm going to give you a specific protocol that addresses the root cause instead of just managing symptoms. This isn't about sleep hygiene or bedtime routines. This is about retraining your unconscious mind to see rest as safety instead of vulnerability. Night 1. The awareness audit. Tonight, you're not trying to sleep better. You're becoming a detective of your own sabotage patterns. Keep a notepad by your bed, and every time you notice one of the 5 signs showing up, write it down without judgment. Don't try to change anything yet. 10:30 p.m. Perfectionist checking door locks for 3rd time. 11:15 p.m. Productivity addiction, suggesting I organize photos. 12:45 a.m. Strategic catastrophizer worried about presentation next week. 1:20 a.m. Feeling restless because day was too peaceful. Chaos addiction. 2:10 a.m. Telling myself I'm exhausted but scrolling phone. Exhaustion imposter. The goal is simply awareness. You're gathering intelligence about your own patterns. Most people are shocked to discover how active these sabotage mechanisms are once they start paying attention. Night 2. The negotiation. Tonight, when you catch a sabotage pattern, you're going to have that conversation I mentioned. But here's the specific format that works. Acknowledge. I see you. Pattern name. Appreciate. Thank you for trying to protect me by specific action. Redirect. Right now, the way you can best protect me is by letting me rest. Commit. I will handle legitimate concern tomorrow with a rested mind. For example, I see you, strategic catastrophizer. Thank you for trying to protect me by preparing for every possible problem with tomorrow's presentation. Right now, the way you can best protect me is by letting me rest. I will handle any actual challenges tomorrow with a rested mind, and I'll be much more effective than I would be running on no sleep. Night 3. The surrender experiment. This is where the real breakthrough happens. Tonight, you're going to practice what I call conscious vulnerability. When you get into bed, instead of trying to control your way into sleep, you're going to deliberately embrace the surrender that sleep requires. Say this, either out loud or silently. I am choosing to be vulnerable right now. I am choosing to let go of control. I am choosing to trust that I am safe enough to rest deeply. My worth is not determined by my vigilance. My safety is not dependent on my constant alertness. I give myself permission to be completely unconscious for the next 8 hours, trusting that I will wake up refreshed and capable of handling whatever tomorrow brings. Then, instead of lying there trying to make sleep happen, focus on releasing tension from different parts of your body while repeating, I am safe enough to rest. I am safe enough to let go. I am safe enough to surrender. The transformation timeline. Here's what to expect. Night 1. You'll be amazed at how much mental activity you weren't even aware of. Night 2. You'll start to feel some space between you and the patterns. Night 3. You might experience the first glimpse of what natural sleepiness actually feels like when it's not being hijacked by unconscious protection mechanisms. Some people see dramatic improvement within these 3 nights. Others need a few weeks of consistent practice. But everyone starts to understand the difference between being tired and being ready for sleep, between trying to force rest and allowing natural rest to occur. The long-term strategy. Once you've completed the 3-night reset, the ongoing practice is simple. Continue the conversations with your sabotage patterns, but also start building evidence that rest is safe. This means deliberately choosing rest during the day when possible, taking actual lunch breaks, sitting quietly for 5 minutes without distraction, allowing yourself to be bored occasionally. Your unconscious mind needs proof that letting your guard down doesn't lead to disaster. Every time you rest during the day and nothing bad happens, you're building the case that nighttime rest is also safe. The deeper truth. Here's what this process will ultimately reveal. Your insomnia was never about sleep. It was about trust. Trust that you're safe enough to be vulnerable. Trust that the world will continue functioning while you're unconscious. Trust that your worth isn't dependent on constant vigilance or productivity or problem solving. The people who sleep well aren't necessarily those with perfect bedrooms or ideal routines. They're those who have made peace with the fundamental vulnerability that sleep requires. They've learned that true strength sometimes looks like surrender, that real control sometimes means letting go, that genuine safety sometimes requires risk. Your journey from insomnia to natural rest is really a journey from fear-based living to trust-based living. And once you make that shift, it affects everything. Not just your sleep, but your relationships, your work, your entire experience of being human. You're not just learning to sleep better. You're learning to live with less defensive armor and more authentic presence. You're discovering who you are when you're not exhausted, not hyper-vigilant, not constantly preparing for disasters that may never come. If this resonates with you, and you're ready to transform not just your sleep, but your entire relationship with rest and vulnerability, please hit the like button to let me know. This helped you see your insomnia in a completely new way. I've created a comprehensive ebook that goes even deeper into these concepts, with detailed scripts for the conversations with each sabotage pattern, additional protocols for different types of sleep resistance, and a complete 30-day transformation program. You'll find the link in the description below. And speaking of transformation, I have 2 videos on your screen right now that will continue this journey. Click on one of them to dive deeper into either the psychology of rest or the practical strategies for overnight change. Don't let this moment of insight fade. Click one of those videos and keep building the momentum toward the peaceful nights you deserve. Your well-rested life is waiting for you. The question is, are you ready to stop sabotaging it?